So instead of being able to choose American beef at the supermarket, all I can do is choose beef, and it could be disgusting Chinese beef, made in substandard, subhuman conditions, full of bacteria, and I will have no way of knowing.
That's exactly right, Naomi. And often, so there are just 5 main processing plants in the United States that process about 95% of our domestic food supply, meat supply. Okay. On any given point in time, any given day, right? There's 5,400 head of cattle going through each one of these processing facilities, 5,400 per day. That's, or with hogs, it's about 1,200 hogs per hour.
Wow.
So when it comes to these conversations about EID, for example, it's just ridiculous, right?
What's EID?
So EID is electronic ID tag, and it's supposed to, it's a conversation for another time. Good. Just sticking to the idea of labeling, right? This idea that we can have 5,400 head of cattle going through, a single day and being processed, we end up with anywhere between 50 to 100 different cows in 1 pound of hamburger at the grocery store alone. Wow. And then the USDA stamps that as USDA approved, made in the USA, if it is any way materially altered in the United States. So if we have cows coming in from Mexico or from
right,
and they are processed here in the United States, it means that's the product of the United States, although it's undercutting the American farmer and rancher.
Totally.
Oh my gosh.
Or like you look at Smithfield Pork, which is wholly owned by the Chinese Communist Party.
That's exactly right. JBS is owned by Brazil. So 2 of these big 4 are owned not even by our own country.
Oh my gosh.
And they're augmenting them too.
What do you mean augmenting?
Well, so I did an interview with the Daily Caller, and we were talking about Smithfield. And what they've been doing at Smithfield is genetically altering some of the pork, so it has 3 times as much protein.
Ew.
But then those pigs are being shipped back to China, and those pallets are set aside for the People's Liberation Army only, and all the other pork that they're producing either goes to the Lao Beijing, the common folk, or to us, basically.
God. Well, so Breeauna,
government intervention is just silly to begin with. Just a very short example. California, for example, passed Proposition 12, which put restrictions on confinement for breeding pigs, essentially. Okay. We're breeding all of those pigs here in the Midwest, and we're charging a premium only for them to be processed and shipped back to California for quadruple the price. So it's just absolutely ridiculous when the government gets involved like that. But sorry, I apologize. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, is it fair to say that, like, by bringing in cheaper, maybe worse beef from Mexico and then treating it as American beef, it's kind of a version of bringing in cheaper labor without, unions or standards or whatever, and exploiting it?
I could certainly see how some would make that argument, but I would attribute it more to intellectual property theft.
Oh, interesting.
I would consider it to be plagiarism.
Right. Oh, I get it. They're selling it as if it's American beef, but it's not American beef, and all the resources that go into making American beef are being appropriated. That's exactly the same. Exactly. That is IP theft.
Right. And just like your team spent the last 3 years laboriously going through these documents for them to be lifted and used in the Senate hearing, thankfully it's being exposed, sure, and thankfully people are still getting their beef. Great. The problem is that we have just plagiarized the work of thousands of American ranchers, and it's hollowing out our farming and ranching communities because we're not getting the credit, which actually translates to monetary reimbursement, right?
And financial security, plus the ability to put those resources back into the farms, right?
exactly right. Yes. And that's why our cattle volumes are at a 70-year low right now. We are in very big trouble in this country if we ever plan to feed ourselves. So, and especially if we ever end up in a time of war, for example, if our supply lines get shut off, which they have been frequently lately, our global supply chain is quite volatile at the moment.
Wow. It
Wow.
is.
Embargo on Mexico because of New World screwworm, which if you happen to catch the article on that at Zero Hedge, the biological barrier was breached at the Darien Gap because we had so many people, millions of new hosts, that the mechanisms previously used to stop this parasitic fly from spreading past the Darien Gap were just obliterated. And wouldn't you know it, the New World screwworm has just come right up the same.
It's called the New World screwworm.
What does it do, Breeauna?
It is a flesh-eating parasitic worm,
Oh,
larva of a particular fly. So the fly gets in even the teeny tiniest little scrape or cut anywhere on your body, and it lays its little teeny tiny eggs, and then those. And they.
Sorry, it's we're in a highly insected area, and I'm just thinking, in this area they experiment on bugs and everything. And we once had a hornet that I killed in our screen porch. We're close to Connecticut and Massachusetts, so pretty far from South America.